So I learned about myself that, it's probably good to give everything time and not completely act on things right away that I journal. But many of those things in my journal, like if I go back, which I have, to random people that I've met that have become business partners, or ideas that I've had that I've turned into money-making opportunities, have worked, and they all start out in a journal.
Welcome back, everyone, to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. And boy, do we have a great show lined up for you today. As always, my co-host, Garrett Fry, I'm Matt Benelli, and then we have an incredible guest. Pat Hiban is with us today. He is a real estate legend. I mean, if you haven't heard his name, drop it into Google and you will see the long history of incredible accolades that he has in the real estate world. But he is also the co-founder of an incredible organization called GoBundance, which is a tribe for healthy, wealthy, and generous men and women. And he's also the co-founder of DAPT Acquisitions, which is basically a acquisition company for multifamily properties, specifically in Georgia, but also throughout the U.S. And so, Pat, welcome to the show, man. We are so excited to have you with us today.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Garrett. Good to be here, buddies.
Yeah, this is going to be an awesome conversation. Garrett, good morning to you as well, sir.
Good morning. Excited to be here also. Thanks for having me on, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Always. I don't think we've ever done a show without the two of us together. So
no, we haven't performed that one yet. I don't know. It would be awkward. It would just be strange. So I'm good to have you here, Matt. And Pat, I'm excited to jump in. Matt got a chance to meet you in person, and he came back saying, I met the most interesting guy, and then started talking about your accomplishments and what you've done and your approach to business and books you've written. And I'm like, oh, this is right in alignment with our audience, what they like to hear, what they like to learn. So again, I think we've got some great pathways to go down today. And I think we should jump right in. So
let's dive in, Pat. So for those who don't know you, I mean, I gave a short intro, which I don't even know if we have enough time to cover all the amazing things that you've done. But for the people that don't know you, what would be the thing that you would want to share about you so that people can get up to speed with who you are and your expertise in real estate?
Who I am and what my expertise in real estate is. So I got into real estate at 21 years old, fresh out of college. And I stayed very active in real estate up until, say, 46 or so. I had a big team, and I started partnering with my top agent at the time to get out of the business. Eventually got out of the business from a team perspective in 2018, something like that. I've always bought and sold properties along the way. In the beginning, obviously, was just single family homes, renting them out or flipping them. And then I ended up partnering with some people that I met, some business partners, and we started buying bigger things, shopping center, office building, mainly multifamily. We found that's the asset class that we like the best, and stuck with that, and have about 2,500 doors, mainly in Atlanta. Two of the developments are in Florida, but the other 8 or so are in suburbs of Atlanta. So, I've kind of had my pulse on real estate my whole life. When I sit next to somebody on a plane, it's always a struggle with what do you do. The easiest, most laid back thing to say is I'm a real estate guy. But I've done, like you said, tons of other stuff too.
Well, and I'd say, Pat, too, the contributions. I mean, you've done. I mean, you sold over $1 billion worth of residential real estate in your career. So that's billion with a B, by the way, for those of you who are listening. Now, you've been in it for a while as well, and so you've had a good amount of time to develop that track record. But also, from a leadership and educator perspective, you've written a great book, 6 Steps to 7 Figures. Which, if anybody hasn't checked that out, Go check that out. It's still very relevant today, even though you wrote that back in 2011, correct?
Yeah, 2011. Then we redid it. I redid it with bigger pockets, with a new intro and a new outro, like 2022, I think it was. So, So there's an updated version now online.
I love that. Garrett.
Pat, I'm curious about your real fast, and we don't have to go too deep down this, but when we talk about your multifamily and acquisition side of that, and you just mentioned how many doors was it?
2,500 roughly.
So I'm always fascinated by people's kind of like their road map with real estate. You know, there's this place that we get into of like, okay, you do your own personal buying and selling. And then there's a place that you get into larger investments and then larger investments. And then here you end up in the world that you're in right now. Was that an investment direction driven by money, or was there a passion that you found around multifamily units, or was it like a leverage type of place you got into of like, we can make a big difference in real estate fast working with the multi-unit properties?
That's a good question. I always knew that was the next step. Like, it was monopoly. So you trade in your green houses for big red hotels. So I always knew from a kid that was what was supposed to happen. You were supposed to buy small things and then eventually buy big things. I never really thought I analyzed it. I think I was lucky in that I got involved with some partners. I have 3 partners, and we all had our own skill sets. Andrew Cushman, who runs the company and who's the face and the driver of the company, he's the guy, right? He's the smart one behind that focused asset class. And so anyways, my point in saying that was, to me, I looked at it as pretty ELF. I like to say ELF, easy, lucrative, and fun, right? I could do it with friends. I could do it easily, and it was lucrative. And it's done well. You know, we've probably done 17 or so of them. We've sold probably 7. I'm just guessing. We've only been upside down, sold something for less than we paid on one of them. So our track record's pretty good. And that one that we did bad on, luckily we didn't raise any money on. That one was just all our own money. So we didn't have any embarrassment with that. So yeah, you know, I've been real lucky with that. But to answer your question, it just felt like the next best thing to do. You can't touch it as much. You don't feel like you own it and control it as much, right? Because it's so big and there's so many other people involved. But it's still nice, yeah.
I like both answers. I like it felt the right thing because of monopoly. That's a really good answer. Just keep buying bigger and working your way up. And I also like the ELF. It's funny, I've never heard that actually said before, easy, lucrative, and fun. But what a great model to apply into things that you're doing, to be like, can we apply the ELF model into this? That's what I'm going to be shooting for in my future business. It's good.
It's a great way to approach things. So now, thinking about like that journey too, and correlating it to your book and the things that you teach other people to kind of set up in their lives, like, was this a goal? Did you have a specific goal? Because I think people here are like, gosh, over $1 billion sold, 2,500 units owned or 2,500 doors owned. It's like, some people can't even think that big. But your first step in your book too talks about setting goals and using the SMART method, which is actually what we also apply in our business planning workshops, is making sure people set SMART goals. But also having the affirmations to tune the belief system and the mindset around that. Can you kind of talk about your journey in discovering that and how you kind of go through that process yourself into tuning your mindset to think big and also believe that you can accomplish those things?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think I think for most people it doesn't end, but I still am dealing with that. I was actually journaling yesterday, like I hear what you're saying, right? I hear you're saying, look at this gain, but I still look at the gap. You know, I'm still looking at it, like, okay, well, look at this big gain I've had. In my mind, I still look at the gap, and then I think to myself, and I literally just was thinking this yesterday, like, so I had this guy, right, that at GoBundance, we talk about something we call wealth determiners, which are 5 people. You put your name on a piece of paper, then you write 5 people underneath you that are your wealth determiners. These people are going to determine your wealth, right? They're going to, you know, they could be like the CEO, Matt King, who you saw on stage, Matt, or someone like he would be one of mine. And so I have this other guy that I know who, you know, I just know that I know that this guy's going to be worth more money than this unbelievable amounts of money. And he brought this deal to me, and I showed it to a couple people, and they didn't like it. It's complicated. And so then I was talking to him the other day, and he's like, oh man, you missed out on that. You know, that you would have made millions on that deal. And I was like, damn, what? Really? No, I thought I thought for sure thing was a failure. Anyways, to make a long story short, I started journaling about, did I say no to that on purpose because I didn't believe that sort of increase in wealth, like it could have, you know, it was a big one, do I have a limiting belief on that? Did I almost not want to have that money? Is that why I said no to that? Because I didn't want that money. For multiple reasons go into your head, like, oh, because, you know, what are you going to do with it? And do I really want a jet? You know, not really, you know, do I really want, you know, anyways, to make a long story short, I started thinking, well, maybe my mind is limited to that. Maybe I should do an affirmation around that. Because why not? Right. Like, so anyways, I still struggle with that gap versus gain. And I hear what you're saying about, wow, look at that gain. And how did you get from, you know, selling 10 houses a year to 500 houses a year? What was that gain like? But I think I really do think that I've always felt, or at least I did feel when I was selling houses, that was what I was supposed to do, was supposed to sell more than the year before and more than the year before and more than the year before. And when I didn't, I was doing something wrong. That was a long way to answer your question, but I think I stayed on track.
Well, you brought up some really interesting points, which was talking about the gap versus the gain. But what really caught my attention was you journaling and realizing that you might have a limiting belief about a situation that was put in front of you. And I think I watch people in real estate all the time that, you know, this awesome transaction comes up in front of them and their brain initially goes, oh my gosh, I got this great opportunity. I should bring in so-and-so on this and so-and-so on this and so on this because I'm not ready to do that. And I've always said, step back, like, where's your limiting beliefs around the situation that's in front of you right now? And a lot of people don't realize that it's a limiting belief. They're just like, well, I haven't done it yet. And I'm like, well, yeah, but this is your chance to go do it. Like, this is your opportunity in front of you. And I heard you talk about journaling around that as a way to kind of like bring that out and have that discussion with yourself. And I think a lot of us don't have those discussions. How do you journal? Like, what is is it something you do every day? Is it something you do only when your mind's kind of like trying to figure something out and processing something? What is your kind of program around journaling? Because it's a great way to have a discussion with yourself and to figure things out.
I've always journaled, and I think that I think it all dates back. I remember going to Anthony Robbins' seminar, then, and this is probably 35 years ago, and he says, "If life is worth..."
It was an early seminar because he was Anthony Robbins then, and not Tony yet. Right?
We might have been at that one together. Keep going.
He said, "If life is worth living, it's worth recording," meaning writing down. I try to journal every day. It's kind of like my way to wake up. I drink coffee and journal, and I enjoy it. Sometimes it's just a recording of what I did yesterday. Other times it's, an idea. My biggest struggle with it is, I'll get ideas and I'll go balls out on them. Like I'll journal like 2 pages on them and have pictures and diagrams and all this shit about how I'm gonna, this is gonna be a great thing. They're usually all like business ideas or things that cause me to be a little productive, let's just say. And 5 days later, I'll be uninterested in that idea completely. So I learned about myself that, it's probably good to give everything time and not completely act on things right away that I journal. But many of those things in my journal, like if I go back, which I have, to random people that I've met that have become business partners, or ideas that I've had that I've turned into money-making opportunities, have worked, and they all start out in a journal, because it does help you be the architect of that building by writing it down. I think without writing it down, you're just constantly co-enumerating it in your head, and you might tend to repeat yourself with a lot of that. It goes
back to how many times do you want to have that first thought of that first great idea over and going like, I think, what would be a great idea? It's like, okay, you've done this 10 times now. Like the nice part about journaling is you get to make it a little bit more concrete and a little bit more real. So you don't go about it like it's a first great idea again. over and over and over.
Exactly.
So I love this process because I think I don't journal enough. This one practice that I've been trying to get into more. I also think it's a great way to start to formulate goals and break free of kind of the shiny object syndrome that exists, particularly in real estate right now. I mean, gosh, you hop on any platform and there is, oh no, do this, no, do this, no, this method, or hey, no, you need to learn this tool over here is going to completely transform. And then we now have the rise of the real estate influencer, as I'm calling them, where they're getting lots of clicks and follows, but they're not actually selling any houses. So looking at going from like journaling to goal setting to action taking, what is your process of identifying these ideas, setting goals, and then breaking it down into trackable actions so that you can actually see results from that over time, and pairing that with building that belief system that, hey, I can actually produce results out of this stuff?
Well, we created this thing at GoBundance. It's called a one sheet. And basically what it is, if you've seen the old Topps baseball cards, they had a picture of the baseball player holding a bat, with his uniform on, and then you flipped them over on the back, and on the back is all the stats, the RBIs, the home runs, all the details about his batting average, And so we created the one sheet, which is basically the back of that baseball card. And it says everything from your health to what is your weight, your resting heart rate, your body fat, things like that. And then your wealth, what's your net worth, what is your recourse debt, uh, everything you could think of regarding wealth. And then there's five, and then you have 5 goals in many different categories. Let's say, one of the categories is your real estate sales business. And then, so you'd have 5 goals in that. And might be, increase your number of sales by this much and hire this person and, do these 5 things. And then the goal is to review that one sheet with 4 or 5 people that you're matched up with, peer partners that could listen to your goals and say, hey, how have you done? Where are you now on that? And it just reminds you, there's no sense setting a goal on January 1st and then not looking at it till December 31st. And that's what most people do, right? They go to a seminar, they set the goal, and then they never really look at it again. But if you're forced to look at it again and forced to say, where am I on that goal? Then you're forced to do something. You're either going to do one or two things. You're not going to do it, and you're going to feel like a failure for not doing it. So you might cross it out, or you actually do it. So it's kind of black and white, right?
It's amazing how fast you will watch somebody put a line through a goal instead of going like, let me figure out the solutions around this. Let me look at this from 10 different angles and figure out if there is a way to get here. Maybe it's a limiting belief that I have. Maybe it's, just not putting myself in the right situations. But I've watched more often than not, you get about halfway through a year and people will pull a goal out because they haven't looked at it in 6 months. And they go, I don't know if that's possible. Maybe I need to reduce this. Maybe I need to do something different. It's like, wow, imagine if you just checked in on that a little bit more. Maybe
but they don't want to admit it though right out loud. Like it's very hard to admit out loud. It's like, well, if you tell them, okay, that's okay. It's okay to quit that goal. Well, I'm not. I still want it. They say, well, if you still want it, why don't you have it on your goal? Why are you giving up if you still want it? I think what they're really saying is they still want it, but they don't want to put in the work or make the change to make it happen.
Do you think a lot of people set goals that aren't necessarily their own goal, but it sounds good? Like, ooh, that's cool. I want that too. So I'm going to set that as a goal without actually having the conversation with themselves about who they need to become in order to achieve that goal.
Yeah. And sometimes it's okay. Like sometimes that's right. Like they don't, because it does require you to change. It does require you to be different. And I think it's okay to be,
Pat, you mentioned a jet a second ago, and it was funny how fast you're like, I don't think I want a jet, but I know a lot of people that put a jet on their goals because
a lot of people put that
that's
on
what
there.
We're supposed to do. If you're playing at that level, like that's where you're supposed to go. And I love that you're like, I don't think I really want a jet like that. I think that's a reality.
And I guess the question is, right, is it that I don't want a jet because I don't believe that I should have a jet, or is it I don't want one because it's a pain in the ass and you gotta be like, I almost feel like so if I question myself, why would I say that, right? And I think really what it boils down to is kind of do I want to be that guy? Do I want to be that guy that has a jet? Well, what does that guy look like, right? Well, that guy probably has a lot of people following around doing stuff for him and stuff. And do I want to be that, or do I want to just be by myself? I don't know. It is interesting. It's a great question, but I've always felt like I've never really driven like Mac Daddy cars, and I would never want a Ferrari or anything like that. Me personally, I just haven't gotten, it just doesn't get me high to drive around in a flashy car and have people look at me. It just is what it is, right? So it's never been on my goal. My goals have always been math related, kind of almost, pay down that debt, or save that much money or have this much in that account. And then when I have this much in that account, open another account and, put $1 million in that account. And that's like a goal. And for a lot of people, they'll be like, well, what about a watch? Or what about, what about, a Ferrari, or what about a jet? And I'm like, no, I'd rather have a new bank account or a new piece of real estate or a new thing. I don't know why. It's just how my mind thinks,
This is the monopoly mindset. Literally, this is where it's watching the cash piles kind of grow in front of you, watching the amount of real estate you have on the board. Like, it's a different mentality to be, let's say that's the driver of you, then look at the watch, look at the suit I have, look at the jet, look at the cars, which, by the way, is an impressive driver for a good amount of people out there. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's good to understand who you are and what drives you. And this goes back to, Matt, what you were saying, which is like, is it your goals or somebody else's goals? And I think this is where a lot of people get derailed in the drive to get them to where they want to go, is they're not really chasing their own goals, chasing somebody else's. Now, that's what got me fascinated about you. Maybe it was a limiting belief, but also being a little bit self-aware of like, I don't know if a jet's it for me.
Yeah. I mean, I'll ride in one. And if push comes to shove, like if I missed a flight or something, and then, I would probably pay for it. I've never bought the NetJets thing, but I mean, I could, but but anyways, I would use one, and I have used ones that friends have had, business partners and things. And, but I just
I think what's crazy is, Pat, you've created this structure of just freedom, right? And which kind of wraps your sixth step. It's like a big wrapper. You start with goals and you end with wealth and life design, which I got to ask too, in writing that book and that last step there, was that a lot of the inspiration to get into GoBundance? Because from what I've experienced with you and Matt and other people I know who are involved in GoBundance here in Charleston, there's a lot of life design that wealth helps achieve, but it's also about making sure that you're achieving the joy of life and also providing service and giving back and all those different things. So was this wealth and life design idea the foundation for you being a part of that creation of GoBundance?
Yeah, absolutely. It was David Osborne and I kind of, we met like 25 years ago or whenever it was, like 1997. And we were in a different group, and this is right before like the first stock market crash. I guess that was like 99 or 2000. Well, it was around September 11th, 2000, right? Was that September 11th was 2000? Anyways, so anyways, to make a long story short, we set up this thing with stocks, like buying stocks, like we listed everybody's name there was a group that met in Phoenix, Arizona. It was mainly couples, but there were some other guys like me and him that weren't there with spouses. There was like 30 of us. We put everybody's name on a piece of paper, and put it up on the wall, and wrote how much you had in stocks, and every quarter we would track how much your stocks went up, really, because back then real estate, back in the 90s, real estate was not going up. You know what I mean? Like, you buy a house for 100, it would be worth 100 next year and then it'd be worth 100 the next year. So you could put that there, but it didn't really grow like these internet stocks that ended up imploding did. And so after about 2 or 3 quarters, we were the only people that filled out this form and had it on the wall. So it's basically this big giant, whiteboard piece of paper up there, and Pat and David filled it out every quarter, and none of the other people in the group did. And we were like, well, this is stupid. So we started doing it ourselves. And then we met Tim Rode and Mike McCarthy, and then we started doing it together, the four of us, um, it was all about that step 2 of my book, which is track, right? Like why don't other people track stuff? Like, why do they? We couldn't understand why people just didn't track stuff. If you're going to have a goal, you have to track it. The easiest one is weight, right? It's like going on a diet, never stepping on a scale. It's just not going to work. It's just not.
People actually train not to step on the scale. And it's funny is like, to know where you're at and to make changes, you have to step on the scale. I think it's an interesting way to look at that.
I remember I had an agent come to me once, in real estate offices, they probably still do this, right? When you sell a house, they used to have whiteboards, right? And you sold a house and it said Pat Hiban and it has the listing and the list price. And then there's another one for sales. One of my agents, when we used to do all that, she came to me and she said, I don't like that, and it was because mainly she was saying that because there was another agent who had written like 5 in a row up there, and she hadn't had one in there in a couple of months. But I always found that interesting that, it does make people uncomfortable, but I think that's the low and the high of it all, right? It makes you like, oh my God, all month long and I haven't sold a house. I can't even believe my name's not up there. And then the high of when you get to write your name up there, or the secretary writes your name up there 5 times in a row, and everybody's like, damn, holy shit, what's Hiban been eating for breakfast? He just sold 5 houses,
Well, that's interesting you bring that up, because I think it's fascinating. The scoreboard inside the office has gone away in a lot of brokerages that I know. And I've encouraged brokerages, even the one that I worked at, like, hey, maybe this is something we should do. Back when I first learned Ninja and went and saw that they do the scoreboard thing at the group, I was like, well, we should do that. And they said, well, but we don't want people to feel bad about not producing. But now fast forward to today, and the scoreboard is artificial and it's on Instagram, and people go and say like, oh, Pat has 200,000 followers and he's got his showing another listing, but behind that could be no sales. It's all just visual and rented attention in a way. Some of it is real. Don't get me wrong. There are some people who are doing real stuff out there. And so I think it's very important to have this, awareness of where we are, but not so far as getting into this negative competition space, because I think that's why they removed it. They're like, oh, people are being too comparison minded, and comparison is the thief of all joy and all that stuff. So how do you view that? Because Garrett and I just did a podcast on this very topic, actually, and obviously it's also biblical, comparison being the thief of joy. What's your viewpoint on that? Do you look at other people as a way of getting like, oh, cool, if they did that, I can do it? Or is there some negative connotation in there? And how do we approach that from maybe an affirmation standpoint if we do face that?
I guess we could hold 2 opposing views in our head at the same time on this. I mean, comparison is the thief of joy. There's times where I myself compare too much, and usually those are not fun times in my head, right? Yet at the same time, without comparison, I probably would never be where I am, and I would never have achieved. I can remember the first time I ever went to a real estate conference. I mean, I was in the business 5 years or so, or 10 years, I don't know. And I went to a RE/MAX conference, and I thought I was hot shit, like in our little zip code, selling 4 houses a month or whatever it was at the time, right? I was busting my ass, and it was all by myself. And I went to this RE/MAX conference, and there was people from all over the country and the world, and these guys were just killing it. And I was just a guy in the back row, and these guys are up on the stage. I was like, I had no idea they even existed, right? This is before social media and everything. So you really didn't know what some guy in Dayton, Ohio was doing. So So that was the first time my mind ever really exploded with comparison, where I came back and I was like, oh my God, if that guy's doing it there, I can do exactly what he's doing better. And comparison became the driver that really helped me succeed. I mean, everything. Floyd Wickman used to have a statement that was creativity is the ability to hide the source. And what he was saying is don't try to get creative, just copy other people. And my whole real estate sales business was copied off other people that I would see some guy in Dayton, Ohio doing it, and I'd be like, man, I could do better than that schmuck. Like, let me change it or let me make it better. My mind thinks constantly about how to make businesses better. Like, so much that it gets me in trouble. It got me thrown out. This guy opened up a coffee shop down here, and I have a dog. I walk the dog multiple times a day. I love coffee. He's building it out. I was like, dude, a big sign says no dogs. I'm like, dude, you can't have no dogs here. I said, at least you should build a walk-up window right here where people can walk up with their dogs and you give them coffee. It'd be a great thing. Because I live on the beach, so it's warm all the time. And he's like, I just spent $100,000 in tenant improvement. I don't need anybody telling me what to do.
That's a growth mindset.
I was like, all right, fuck you. I'm going to go get my coffee somewhere else. But that's how it is, man. I mean, that's happened to me a couple of times where like my mind just thinks that. So anyways, back to the point, I can't help myself. So I'll go and I'll see Matt Bonelli, doing it this way. And I'll be like, well, really what Matt should say in his ads is this. But I like the idea how he does that. And I'll just copy you and change it a little bit and see if it works better. And I did that for 30 years. You know what I mean? Like and it worked well for me.
But I think when you have these leaderboards, when you have these abilities of seeing these people, like when you were talking, going back to the stocks and having everybody sharing, okay, what did you do? How did you perform? How did you perform? A growth mindset person is one that sits there and goes, okay, so how did you do that? Like, I want to learn from you about how you raised up and got to that level. Instead of just sitting back and going, well, Pat always does good in this kind of stuff. He's just lucky all the time. And gosh, it just drives me crazy every time he comes in. He's got more money in the accounts and like, it's just not fair. I think there's a lot of those people that say, I don't want the leaderboard in the office because it tears me down all the time. Instead of them saying, how are they doing that? How are they getting there? How are they producing those results? We were thinking about this. I didn't graduate from this high school. I actually switched up, so there's a bigger story there. But 2.5 years, I went to De La Salle High School in Concord, California. And De La Salle is known nationwide for the longest track record for consecutive wins for football. They have crazy numbers that they have set, and they've got a leaderboard in their locker room. I think lots of schools do. But these goals felt like unattainable. Like they were numbers that people would look at and go, that one was set in 1963. This one was set. And like they were crazy numbers. But it was always an amazing driver for the people at that school that were setting records for that year, day in and day out, to go, we know what can be done and how can we try to get closer to that. And I think those leaderboards, I think have been removed a lot, but I think they're very powerful in helping people say, like, we know what's possible and let's see if we can do better. I think they should come back. I still remember the smell. I remember walking in my dad's office and the smell of the pens and the smell of the cleaner they would use to clean those boards. Very, very, very distinct.
There was no better high for me, like really, that now that we have this in-depth conversation about leaderboards, I was never a sports guy. I was very uncoordinated. Never really, I didn't crush it. I got like a 2.6 GPA in college. I wasn't like a ladies' man. I was never really like, I never really found a niche like where I could have a leaderboard, where I could get dopamine hits from achievement of any kind as a kid, I think. when that started happening in real estate sales or any type of sales, it was huge for me. Like I probably worked harder to get my name on that damn leaderboard than I did for the actual commission that was tied to the transaction. So I, for some people, myself included, I mean, they're absolutely 100% necessary, you know?
Well, so Pat, have you read the book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant?
Yeah, I love that book.
So it's interesting. He talks about it in there about luck and about finding your things that you're good at. And it may not have been sports for you. It may not have been the lady killer crusher out there. It's okay. But it might, but you know, finding that area that you're like, you know, I'm good at this. Like this is something that resonates with me and I enjoy it. Those are the areas to track. Those are the areas to say, look, if this is something that it's like, for me, it's racing. And I get oddly competitive over track times. And, that is a driver for me. And to track those and to have a list of every track and how fast I've been in different cars is something that fuels me. It doesn't fuel everybody. And there's a lot of people that say, well, why is it worth tracking that stuff? It's for me, it drives me. And I think you found your area that, like, you know, this really drives me. And then that's where in your 6 steps to 7 figures, I think consistently tracking is an incredibly powerful thing, but you got to be going after something that you want to obtain that drives you.
Yeah. And that's an interesting conversation too, right? Because there's things that we want and there's things that we need. And a lot of guys in GoBundance are focused on 2 things mainly, you know, money and health. Like, you know what I mean? They'll run a triathlon and they'll run 2 triathlons a year and they'll, you know, make $2 million a year. Yet the other pillars, which we have 6 pillars in GoBundance, but the other pillars like family and relationships or things like that lack, right? Like they don't see their parents or they don't talk to their sister or they, you know, or their, you know, their kids not becoming a productive, respectable teenager. You know, there's other things that they need to have as much obsession on as race car driving or for me, investing or saving money as our other obsessions. So it's important to write at the same time goals for things that don't drive you. You know, family might not drive you, but you don't want that to be your legacy that your kid was a bum, right? Like, so does that make sense? So yes and no, right? Like there's two. I guess there's a moderation conversation to have about that, but anyways, I hear you.
How do you pull that in, right? Because I think this is where a lot of real estate agents in particular struggle is they'll focus on the sales obsession, or maybe because they don't even have that obsession and they're not focused on this bigger vision and legacy, they just stop, they freeze. They're like, well, I don't really want to go after being the top on the leaderboard. So I'm just going to kind of make every excuse in the book of why my business isn't working. When I think what you're hitting on too, even if it's not a want now, I think everybody internally and non-consciously has this long-term desire to serve their family, to leave some sort of legacy that is not necessarily their own name in something. So like, how did you figure that out for yourself? Because you say in your book too that you kind of were this workaholic doing all these different things, working really hard, and then you figured out how to move into this space of like, now I'm going to actually have a life and build a legacy versus just being the guy all the time. And so how did you make that transition? And if you're talking to somebody who's struggling with that, what do you suggest to them? Like one of your GoBundance guys who's doing the 2 triathlons and 2 million, but not doing these other things. What does that conversation look like?
Yeah. Well, it's just a fierce I'm friends with a guy that was this thing. And I told him that, I'm like, dude, he's like, oh yeah, my next triathlon is going to be in Japan. I was like, well, your kids are 8 and 10. Like, that's all well and good. Go to Japan and do that. But then, he had another one in Canada, and he had another one in here, and he wasn't taking his family with him, and he wasn't, I was like, well, who are you doing that for, really? There's other ways to stay healthy, you know? So to answer your question, the conversation is just, in my book, it's just flat out. It's like a punch you in the face. Like, look, here's the thing. Look at your one sheet. Look at your goals, or let's just say, look at your list of goals. And it's clear that all your goals are on business, and your wife is not on a single goal. Then should you have a goal that says, a date night once a week? Should you have a goal that says lock your cell phone in your glove compartment when you walk into the house every night? Should you have a goal that says, lay on the floor with your 2-year-old daughter and play Barbies uninterrupted for 30 minutes straight? Like, should you have these goals? Because it's easy to set goals for ourselves, I think, right? But it's harder to set goals for ourselves in other people's worlds.
Pat, I want to compliment you. Well, with the GoBundance, because you said a fierce conversation is what needs to happen. And I think very few of us surround ourselves with enough people in our worlds, and very few of us share those goals with those people where they can be called out. I mean, it's one of those, the easiest thing is to celebrate the gentleman that's going off and doing triathlon after triathlon after triathlon and go, man, look at what this guy's doing. But having that person in your world, that mentor, and that person that you respect, to have that fierce conversation to say, yes, and be careful, and make sure you're setting time for this, and setting time aside for this, and setting time aside for this. Because, I mean, I've seen it, Matt, you've seen it, where people get to their 50s and 60s and look back on a life that they can never go back and recreate. They can never go back and have as crazy as it sounds, the Barbie time with the 2-year-old, or the 3-year-old or 4-year-old, and hanging out and doing that. Like that stuff you can't get back. And so I think, from what you're saying, having all these areas, even if they are a passion and a love of yours, but knowing that it's something that maybe it might not be my driver, but I need to have goals, I need to have routines around it to be able to have success in all aspects and not be overloaded in one area.
Yeah, exactly. And you won't get there without writing them down and looking at them.
Yeah. I love too, you said you just have that flat out conversation. I don't think we do that often enough with accountability partners or ourselves, of just having that like raw, honest conversation of what's important, what's a need, what's a want, and also what can I always go after, and what's fleeting. Cause like the playing with your kid when they're 2, 3, 4, whatever, that's only available then. That's not going to be available later. Making money is available later, but there's also great ways to do both at the same time if you build the right goals and the right structure, right? So, Pat, looping back into your book here and thinking about the audience, and you have all of these steps that build, a 7-figure business. Garrett and I recently had a great conversation about building a 7-figure foundation for people, because it seems to be kind of this benchmark that people just want to get to. And if you can build that foundation from it, you can scale and do great things. What would you say is one of the most important steps in your book out of the 6 that anybody listening can go apply better right now, because most people aren't using it effectively?
I like step 5, which is build, especially for real estate agents. I think real estate agents don't build, and I always in my career capitalize on the building, and by the building, I had a mentor tell me early on, don't what do you say? Don't build on a success up. Don't just build on flat ground. Build on a success up, meaning if you sell a house to a police officer and it went A plus and you could get a referral from that police officer, then try to use it to sell to other police officers. And immediately, if you ever meet another police officer, you say, do you know Officer Stadenko? And of course they'll say yes, because they all know each other or have heard of each other, and say, well, I sold him his house and he gave me a referral, text him or reach out to him. And then if you sell that second one, just be like, I've sold a house to Stadenko and Officer Stone, and both of them love me, and, look them up and do whatever you can to try to build on the success up. So you're building blocks on police officers and become the police officer of the realtor of police officers. But don't just do it on one thing. Like do it on as many things as you can. I built, like, there's this weird phenomena in real estate called a neighborhood expert, and it would drive me crazy because I would live in a neighborhood personally and drive by this houses that went on the market, and I'd be like, how did they list with that guy? He sells one house a year, and lo and behold, he sold the house 2 doors down from them. And that's the only reason they used him, is because they thought just because he sold the house 2 doors down that this guy's a really good agent. It was social proof just because he sold the house 2 doors down. And I'm like, shit, I sold 15 houses in this neighborhood. Why didn't they call me? And I realized that, that guy was able to build from a success up. And so if you have a success in a neighborhood, constantly build, oh, I sold this guy's house, and just repeat it. I'd repeat it for 4 or 5 years instead of just sold last week or whatever. Sending out however you get business. So anyways, I did that constant. I did it with newspaper reporters to call me and ask me my opinion on the real estate market. And now's a great time to start doing that because the market's starting to soft. Reporters love bad press. And if they have an agent that they know is going to pick up the phone in one ring and tell them something maybe a little negative, like honest, like instead of a cliche, like the market's doing great, even though sales are down, they'll call you again. And then next thing you know, they'll call you every week. And then next thing you know, 3 or 4. Man, there was a time when I got all the press and it's all free. And I just built on it. I kept a list. I would mail them stuff. I would check in with them. I would, and again, I just built on it. I did the same thing with REOs on foreclosures when the foreclosure market hit. I just build on whatever, teachers, every little thing you could think of, neighborhoods, just build on them, and journal it out, like we said before. And it works.
I love that. I mean, having a system that you can just apply to anything too, right? I mean, because you mentioned follow up in there with reporters and stuff. So it's taking that one success, whatever it is, and everybody has a success. Like, it doesn't even have to be a home sold necessarily. It could be whatever it is that you can then take, okay, what can I systematize off of this to then scale this? And then the next success that comes along, just apply that same system, right? And then rinse and repeat over and over again. And now you have a scalable system and you develop all these pillars. I love that.
So looking at this building success up, what I wrote down was common ground. And I think what you found in that system that you use there is that you have this place of, like, when you establish common ground and you can document it. This goes back to you talking about consistently tracking. Like, you have to be paying attention. You have to be looking at all the nuances and all the pieces of the business that you're working in right now to say, look, I now have all this common ground that if I choose to use it, I can now go make all these connections with all these people and all these people over here. And I think a lot of us are just going from one transaction to the next, to the next, to the next. And we're not looking at this. I love this build success up. I think a lot of us don't look at it as like, okay, this is just a stepping stone to open up a new door. I've got new common ground. And what a great way to look at it. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. It works.
Pat, as we went down a whole bunch of different paths here, and I know when Matt asked us, is there anything that you really want to focus on? And this, we had this build success up. Is there, if people who are listening to this want to get a hold of you, want to connect with you, what are the best ways they can go do this? I know GoBundance is really big for you. I know you have your book with the 6 Steps to 7 Figures. What are the best ways for people to connect with you if they want to?
That's a good question. Like you said earlier, I guess you could Google me, right?
You will find Pat.
If they want to, I'll give you an email. It's my first name at my last name.com. Pat at Hiban, HIBAN.com. That's an easy way to connect with me. But yeah, I'm on a couple of the social medias. I don't really post that much, but yeah, read my book, read 6 Steps to 7 Figures. We also have the GoBundance book, which is Tribe of Millionaires. Those are both good books. And yeah, and thank you for having me. This has been great. This has been great conversation. You guys are definitely don't ask cliche questions, and all your questions forced me to actually think about what I was going to say rather than regurgitate something I've said on another podcast before already. So I thank you for that. It's really good.
Pat, this has been super fun. Matt, anything else you want to throw in before we jump off?
Thank you, Pat. And yeah, I appreciate you saying that. We try to make it, fun, informational, different. And so I'll say, Pat, if there's anything else that you want to share, I mean, maybe a next step for you too. Like what's the new goal for you? We talked about goals a lot. Is it growing GoBundance to another thing? Is it getting more doors into DAPT? What is the next goal for Pat? And is there anything that we can do to support that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Of course, so my goals, both of those companies I'm an owner of, but I'm not the driver of. Over the years, they've become driven by other people, by our CEOs and the people running them. And I've really, I don't want to say taken a back seat, but yeah, definitely taken a back seat. Some guy asked me the other day, he's like, are you retired? Are you semi-retired? What do you do? And I'm like, well, I work like 2 hours a day is really what it boils down to, right? But then I need that 2 hours a day. Like I have to do it, right? Like I have to have that 2 hours a day makes me feel just productive enough where I'm not driving myself crazy. What's next to me? I don't know. One thing, I'm 59. So one thing, I mean, personally, I turned 60 this year. I had this funny thing that I found in my high school yearbook, which would have been, it would have been 40 years ago, where it says, what is your goal in life, or whatever it said, whatever the question was, where you put it under your photo, and I put to become a famous sex symbol. And that was just like, that was a joke. And that was a joke. But it never happened. So I joined a challenge we have with GoBundance where we're having like a bodybuilding challenge. So for the last 6 months already, I've been like lifting weights, like 5 days a week, like massive volume, which I've never done before in massive volume. And it lasts another 4 months, and then in October is when it's over. And there's like 25 guys doing it. A lot of them are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and it's fun to do, but it's very hard. So in answering your question, what's next for me, I think that's my main focus now, believe it or not. It takes a lot of work, and so I've been focusing on that, something different.
So the second part of that question was, how can we help you become a massive sex symbol, was the second part of that question that you didn't finish answering.
Yeah.
Share the bodybuilding photos when they're done, post them to Instagram.
I'm just going to be embarrassed. I just like, I don't know. I don't know about sharing it. I'm going to let other people share it and tag me, because it's just kind of, it's not, this is not my thing to to do that. But anyways, I'm not gonna explain it anymore. But it's just weird. But anyways, I'm doing it. I signed up for it. I'm committed, and so far so good.
When you're all tanned up and on stage in your mankini, doing the bodybuilding poses, I
drew the line, man. He said, oh, after so you got to pay money. It's all coaching programs. It's like $12,000, right? So it's like a lot of money. And I enjoyed that because it was a commitment, right? It means I'm not going to quit. But then after I paid the money, and I started doing the things, he goes, oh yeah, by the way, and then the day before you got to get like waxed and spray tanned. And I was like, what? And I'm like, I got blonde eyebrows, what? I don't want to look like, what if my eyebrows turn orange like Trump or something, like Trump eyebrow? I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm like, this could be a disaster. I could look like a damn idiot up there. And I was like, I draw the line. No bikini, dude. I'm going like regular, like surfing shorts or whatever, like, I was just like, if you insist, but I'm not doing the Speedo.
Well, I love it. The goal is out there. The public knows now, and we look forward to being able to support you along this path. And this journey,
thanks.
Pat.
Yeah.
But hey, I just want to say thank you. I've enjoyed our conversation so much. Thanks for taking your time with us and sharing your knowledge and your information with our audience. And again, I hopefully we can meet in person somewhere down the road here, or at an event or whatnot. But I look forward to meeting you at some point here in person.
Me too. Let's do it.
Well, thanks, Pat. Appreciate you. Garrett, thank you as well, my friend. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As always, we got a whole lot more coming with Life at 10 Tenths episodes every week. As you guys know, if this is your first time listening, glad you made it this far with us. And you can learn more about what Garrett and I do just by going to lifeat10tenths.com. You can find all the additional stuff, or just download our app, search Life at 10 Tenths on your app store. Other than that, guys, we love you. Have an awesome day. Garrett, thank you, man. Pat, thank you.